Hi. I guess it's a reminder for myself. I'm guessing this is a reminder for myself. Today, I was doing a calculation and I figured out that we practically don't know what exactly time is. We cannot really define time is. Now, the thing is that I figured out a way to create a constant of time. Now, the thing is that, of course, last time I proved that gravity gravity is like much more like a physical structure, and it's also a field and structure, something similar to light works. Now similarly, now I created a kind of a calculation, and it is this. So ironically, what this is that this mass is bent space, but I couldn't figure out a way this mass and this is the bending of the space in my visualization. In my visualization, the thing is, I couldn't practically explain what really causes the slowing down of time. What is the point? What really causes the slowing down of this? So what I did is I created a constant. I created a constant amount of time, which I'm not exactly sure what's the constant, but I'm not exactly sure about the measurement of the constant. There is a constant amount of time in a field. For example, in my imagination, you have practically nothing. Like you have no mass, nothing. So the only two things that exist are the space, a normal space, field, and time. In fact, in my postulations, in my postulates, they state that it's not really possible because without mass there is no time. Because mass is what defines time. For example, you have nothing and you have a field of space, and you add time to it. It's like a fourth dimension. Now you have time and space. And what's the point of time? You see, for absolute nothingness, in my belief, time should not exist. My belief is just that something for a field to exist, there should be time. If it's absolute nothingness, time wouldn't actually apply on it. Neither entropy would. Meaning that factually, for absolute nothingness, there is no time. There is no definite time to it. What defines time is something that is physical, like mass. So, yeah, that's something I proved last time. This time, I cannot really tell why gravity really slows down time. So I created a constant for time. I'm not sure exactly what's the measurement of the constant. It still has to be properly studied by me. But this constant is what the concept of this constant is that after it bends, since the gravity bends space time, so you're slowing down time right now. So since this time is slow in this constant, the lines they move from away from each other. They move from away from each other, meaning that as the time, as a space is bent, a certain line is made. For example, here's the difference. This is normal space as a constant. This is a field with practically nothing. Nothing is slowing down the time here. In space, there is no field. Now this is something. When this is what happens when time is slowed down. When there is a mass slowing down time. So, to exactly prove this point, what I'm gonna do and what I'm gonna say is, when these lines move, the time is being slowed, and there is no particularly enough slowing down of time, but there is a constant. There is a constant. To also, there's also a problem with time, which I'm gonna use one of my three postulates. Well, I have three postulates to explain these things. The first postulate is that you can never know the definite origin of anything, which is something I call a line and a circle theory, which I'm going to explain later in another video. The second, the second theory is that inconsistency in things is what defines them. For example, if everything has the same measurement, then what's the point? Actually, all of these postulates are kind of related. They kind of define each other. And the third thing, I should actually try to remember my piece of. I wrote it in a book. Yeah, anything in this universe tries to create its own balance. If something is at its inconsistent, it tries to create its inconsistency. Technically, you would really call it entropy, but in my definitive term, it's actually quite different. In my term, it's not actually called entropy, it's a little bit different. The thing is that I'm talking about absolute nothingness. So, as everything around you, as it tries to create balance, it does not actually want to be something like, for example, it does not actually ice doesn't actually want to be water. So, okay, I will give you an easy way to understand. 0 plus 1 is 1. But in physical ways, it's actually 0 and 1. In mathematics, you have 0 plus 1 is actually 1. But in my terms, in my space, it's actually 0 and 1. 0 is the field, and plus 1 is something you add to this field. It's just the energy, it's something that exists in this field. I mean that these two things are completely different. And whenever, for example, you're in this random house, what would they do? They just kick you out of the house. Similarly, this field, it does not want this energy to exist. It wants to make itself balance. But it's like saying it's like the fight between the space and gravity. That's how. This is the third one. Yeah, one of these thing. Yeah, let's get back to my own theory right now. What I'm trying to define is that as this time is slowed down, there is no definitive constant this time will slow down. But it's not exactly like you can go into the future or the past. It's not like that. And this one is defined by a postulate of mine called the line and the circle theory, which I explained before. There is no absolute constant for anything. It's like asking which came first, the chicken or the egg. Similarly, it's like asking which came first, the planet or the sun. From the smallest came the biggest, or the biggest came the smallest. That's also it also is like, for example, saying it might get a little bit religious. Now we have so many human beings on this earth, but you can't define it was only one human being, or it was two, or it was hundreds. So where did from one you got millions, or from millions you got one? What's the question? So there is no definite origin to anything. There is no definition. So similarly, there is no constant point at which the space collapses. No, there isn't. Only mass slows the time down. If it were to be true, if actually this was able to collapse, then black holes would technically actually break space-time, which is not possible in my theory. If it was proved, if I am actually proved wrong at the time, I wanted to prove that this, I never really thought of it, and it's great if you really figured out that you can really break space-time. But in my concept, and at my time, which I'm really making this, it was not really possible to really break space-time. Thank you.